Okay, some of you have asked me to do something on the 3D camera in After Effects. So what I'm going to do at the moment is that I'm going to do um, about like a 10-second animation, and that means I'll bring together a new composition and give it a duration of 10 seconds. And what we're going to do is that I'm going to say something like, "Hey, how you doing?" and have it come down on. We'll use the 3D camera and have it come down and zoom in on how you doing. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to show you how things work in the Z-axis. So first of all, why don't I just put in some of my text, and I'll just go, "Hey." And actually, I'm going to use my favorite type style. Let's see here. I'll use my favorite type style. It'll be Atkinson Hyperlegible. And you can ask me about that at some time, why I'm using that. And let me use bold. And I'll just use the shift key. And, oops, sorry. I'll just scale this up proportionally using the shift key. And I don't know why I'm having such a time. Okay, there we go. And what I'll do is that I'll just go and just copy these. Just copy 3 layers. Hey, how you, and then doing. Now just Command C, Command V. All right. So basically, to change these, sorry, I just okay. I'll just select Hey 2, and let's modify it. Now, okay. And what I'll do is I'll also, actually, I'm going to go down here and do a numerical change on the scale. And the thing is that remember, I'm not clicking on the stopwatch, so we're not making any keyframes. So all I'm doing is I'm just scaling things. I mean, I could do this just as easily with I could do this just as easily with the direct select tool, but the thing is that it's just part of the text was off the screen and I didn't want to deal with that. So for the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down here, and I'll just select this Hey. Oh, that's Hey 3. Let's go here to Hey. And then let's just modify this. And then what I'll do is that I'll just take the rotate tool. Actually, one thing we want to do in the beginning here is that we want to take the center of our anchor point, our center of rotation, take it over into the center of the object, because if we're going to rotate anything, we don't want it doing any funny stuff. So, and then I'm also holding down the Shift key so it snaps into, see, it'll snap into 45-degree intervals, and that's fine. All right. Okay, so let me then just see if I can select everything. Let's put it into center here. Okay, so we've got 10 seconds. Let's animate this. Actually, I think 10 seconds is way too long. I think this is probably going to be no more than 5. But let's see how it goes. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to slide the hay in from the left into the right position. I'm going to take How Are You down from the bottom, and then I'm going to have Doing come in from the right. So that'll be our text animation. So then after that, what I'll do is that I'll show you how to do the how to do the 3D camera. Actually, might do a couple other things here. I might put in a couple shapes, but let's get the text taken care of in the beginning. So let's just take these and take the transform. By the way, since we're doing 3D on all of this, see this box here? This is the let's see here. See if we can get this to come up. This is the 3D layer box. You want to turn that on if you're going to be using the 3D camera. And all this, that means that this is now operating in a 3 space. This black area here is now a space. It's not just a flat. It's not a flat sheet of paper anymore. The other thing that I want to do as well, I just want you to see. I'm going to turn on motion blur. It's not that big of a deal. It's just going to make things not look so robotic. And then the other thing that I'm also going to do is I'm also going to take the, give me the tooltip here. Well, I'm going to go and, just because it's just something I like to do, I'm going to center up all the centers of rotation. Okay. It's just because if I do want to start rotating things, I just want everything to go from the center and not from the lower left corner. It's just a little matter of convenience for me, and you know, it isn't anything that's really that necessary. So first of all, let's go to Hay, and let's slide that in. Let's do 2 things. Let's bring the opacity in. Let's turn from transparent to opaque, and then let's also slide it in from the left. So since everything is in place at this point, the thing is that what we want to be doing is we want to be working our keyframes from where everything is going to be in the end, not the beginning. So it's kind of working backward. I hope this isn't too confusing, but for me, this is a way when I'm doing a graphic layout for motion graphics. Sometimes if I'm doing something, I like to see what the final layout is going to be and then work backward. So I'm going to go out here and go to 2 seconds, and I'm going to take position, and I'm going to take opacity. By the way, if you notice with rotation now, we have a Z in here. And so that means we're in 3 space, which is kind of interesting. Let's see here, and I'll show you what that's like here in a minute. But, okay, so if you notice, we've got the 2 blue diamonds, we've got the 2 keyframes in, and so if we move something and we've got the time, if we've got the stopwatch turned on, everything's going to be setting keyframes automatically when we move things. So what I'm going to do is I've got everything set back to time of 0, and there, it's off the screen. Notice 2 things. Is that on one hand, on your motion path, you've got a little handle here, you've got a little handle here. Notice that you can play with this like Illustrator. That's kind of cool. So it means if you want to have it come and bounce in, I'll just come and have it bounce in and slide in a little bit. That can be kind of fun. Okay, and then let's just test this out. Yep. Okay. And of course, you know, sometimes sometimes After Effects doesn't always go in real time, but you know, it's just something we have to deal with. So, so we're going to do hey, and then how are you? And then what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to have how are you start coming in at 1.5 seconds. So let's close all the parameters on hey, and don't worry, we'll work on the transparency here just in a minute. I'm just going to set the motion first. One thing I like to do a lot is that if I have the chance to do it, I like to work with one parameter at a time. I like to work with motion, then I like to go back and work with the opacity, then I like to work with the rotation. So the thing is it's just a matter that I know kind of like what one thing is doing at a time, because kind of like it's like if I'm doing too many things at the same time, I get confused. So that's one of 2 things. It's either if I'm trying to do more than one thing, I either have to be writing things down all the time, or working with my storyboard, which is essential, and then using that as a visual range. So okay. So what I've done now is that I've gone and you can see that hey is still moving in, and you can see that the motion blur is still working. Ooh, okay. And I'm not going to play around with this. I'm not going to play around with these things because I actually want it to come in. I wanted it to come in smooth. This is probably going to come in too slow for what I want to do. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably move the keyframes back. But let's see how it looks. So that's hey, how are you? Yeah, it's too slow. Okay. So let's just move this back to, let's move these keyframes back to 3 seconds. Select these. Okay. Hey, how are you doing? Okay, and then let's go to doing and set the transforms for position and then I probably want this to come in at about 4 seconds. So I'll just set the main keyframe and then I'll just let this automatically keyframe. Notice that the number of frames that I've got going, this is probably too fast. So yeah, actually that is too fast because guess what? Actually, I moved this and I made too many keyframes. So I'm going to move this out to 4 seconds. We've got a few more keyframes. Let's just take a look and see how this works. So hey bounces in. Hey, how are you? And then doing. So what I'm going to do now, since we've got this set up, and actually I'm going to set up the render time for 5 seconds. And then, okay, this is all in 3 space. Why don't I just set up the opacity here real quick. And for each of these, I'm going to set this. I'm going to set it for 100% about halfway in on each of them. Remember, when you hit the back arrow, it'll take you back to the previous keyframe. And I just slid that down. So see what happens? There you go. Okay, so that one's done. And then let's come back here and do what we were going to do before. And that looks fine. I'll just put a keyframe in, and then I'll just slide the opacity down to nothing. Yep. And then let's go back to hey. And then let's go down to opacity, which I've got turned on. And I've already got a keyframe for that right where it ends. And then I'll just bring it back here. I'll let it come in a little bit more slowly. So let's just see what happens. Okay. So there we go. Hey, how are you doing? Okay. So we have the animation set up. So what you're talking about here is, what is this 3D camera thing? It is, imagine, if you will, there's 2 things we have to do. We have to set up a 3D camera, and then something called a null object. And a null object is basically like putting a handle on your camera. So the thing is that when you're working with the camera, you're actually not changing the parameters on the camera at all. You are basically playing with the null object. It's basically a null object. It's just like a box. You put the camera in that has no color, no shape, nothing, but it's just like a box that you're moving around. Mainly because of the fact that if you don't do this, most After Effects cameras, that you're working with have what you say 2 control points. You have the like what the lens is and then what it's pointing at. And the issue is that if you don't remember parent this, parenting is so super essential. It's like if you don't parent the camera to a null object so that you can move it regularly, you're going to wind up having some really irregular movements. In other words, it'll look like it's sliding, or it'll go in weird curves, and it's just not any fun. So, okay, so how do we do this? We do 2 things. First, we make a camera. And what I'm talking about here is that, see here's the 1 point, and there would be another point. And see, this is you use a 2-node camera and put it in a null object. You know what? Don't worry about whether you're filming in 50 millimeter or 35 millimeter or whatnot. It's okay. All of this stuff. If you get really advanced, using depth of field is really kind of cool, because what happens is that if you're using things in 3 space, stuff in the background will go out of focus, and you will have a sense of focus and things. But the thing is that at this point, when you're just trying to understand this thing, don't worry about it. Forget about it. It's fine. So let's just do this. So guess what? You notice something? There's no 3D box. And guess what that means? Because a 3D camera is essentially 3D. In other words, you don't have to click a 3D. You don't have to click a 3D box on a 3D object because it's 3D. Okay, so that's done. So let's go over and take a look at the null object. Let's bring this thing in here. And also, the other thing I'm going to wind up doing is that I'm just going to center up the center of rotation, just because of the fact that, to me, it's just easier to work with. So, now notice that it can be a null object is just something you connect to something else so you can move it. Don't worry about it. It's the thing is that it can be 2 or 3D. So in this case, you want to do it 3D. And here is the other thing that's super important. So kind of like how Animation 1 is working with parented characters and things like that, you're parenting your camera. So what it is that you're basically using this thing to move your object. The thing that's really confusing about using the 3D camera is that you can't see the 3D camera because it's your viewport. It's your viewpoint. And so there isn't like an object there that you can see that you're moving around. But let's just play with this a little bit. So here's null 1. I'm actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call it camera handle. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to parent the camera, and so here you can see your parent and link. I want us to link the camera to the camera handle. Okay. So we're not keyframing anything yet, but let me show you what's going on. So look what happens when I grab it and move it around. The whole thing moves. Right? So basically, if you think about it, we're just taking the camera and removing the whole thing. Notice that I haven't selected any of the text layers at all. So that means I'm not really doing anything to the text whatsoever. So the text is just there. It's doing its own thing. I'm moving the camera. So that's that. So we can move things around. See, there's all this. It's just doing its own thing. So let's do something. What I'm going to do is this, is that I'm going to go and transform. I'm going to take position and Z rotation. Let me show you what happens with Z rotation. See? Z rotation means there's a axis of rotation that's coming straight out of the screen. Let me show you the Y rotation. See, you can see now we're in 3D. And if I started playing around with the Z on the different pieces of text, they'd start popping out here and there. And actually, that's pretty cool. And then also X rotation. See, that's that axis there. And so you could do an X and a Y rotation. See, that's pretty cool. But as I said, only one thing at a time at the moment. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to zoom in on this until the doing starts coming in. So I'm going to take position, and I'm going to get rid of this keyframe, actually, because I'm not going to need it. And then okay. So once again, what I'm going to do is this whole thing of working backwards. So I want the camera to be here, no problems, until we go down and see the doing thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have this zoom out. I'm going to move the camera back in the Z-axis. Maybe 1,000. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, that's zooming back. What I want to do is that I don't want to do 1,000. I want to do negative 2,500. I want it to come back out. So look what happens here. Oops, don't want to move that. See, notice that I'm coming in. Okay. Another thing that I want to do is that also with Z rotation, I want to set a keyframe there. And then I want to go to this position one, and I want to set a keyframe here. Mainly because of the fact that I want to keep the Z rotation in one place until this doing starts coming in. And so what I want to do is that I want to come in and I want to rotate 90 degrees on the Z-axis, and then I want to zoom in down to this doing, okay? And then, so let's do that. So I'm just going to type in 90 degrees. Watch what happens. No, you know what? I want that negative 90 degrees. There you go. That's great. So, and then the other thing that I'll do is that I'll just manually, oh, hang on. Guess what? Guess what I didn't do? Is that I started moving the text and I didn't use the camera. I didn't use the camera handle. So what I'm going to do here is that I want to move this over a little bit. I can grab this like this and use the widget. You know what? Don't worry about. I'm just going to use numbers. I'm just going to grab and scrub it. That's okay. You know what? Think of it this way: is that now, since we turned it 90 degrees, y is going this way. X is now this way. So we need to use we need to do the y-axis. And then guess what? We just scrub down. Use this, and actually I want to just keep adjusting everything. And you know what? I'm going to do one little tiny thing to make it really professional. Because you see here, I've got the tail of the I've got the one stem of the Y here on Hey. Guess what? Wouldn't it be a lot cooler if if it wasn't there anymore? So let's just, and notice how really interesting this is getting. So I'm just going to put an opacity key here, and it's 100%, and then there's that, and then let's just scale it down to nothing. Timing on this is a little bit weird, but and actually what happens is that I don't know why. Let's see here. Don't move this. Don't move the work area. I'm going to make this actually 7 seconds so that we can. Oh, okay, went down to 20 to 26%. That's no good. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to do is that I think just to make it even that little bit more professional, I think I'll do doing, and I'll just set the opacity here at 100%, and then I'll just take it down here to 0, and this will be super, super professional. And then it fades up, fade to black. Now, okay. All right. So let's do one last thing. Just because we're doing just because we're using the 3D camera, I'm going to save this. I'm going to call it Hey. How are you doing? And I'll put this up on online. You can see how this works. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to rotate the camera in the y axis just to show you how all of this works. So again, I'm going to do this whole thing of I'm going to do this idea of working backwards. And I just set a keyframe for the Y rotation. And actually, I'm going to play with the Y rotation, and I'm going to move the keyframe back. Just because I just want to see that this gets really strange really fast. But I'm just playing around. As I said, this is the advanced part of the lesson. So I just want to show you how you can do some of these more complex things. I'm going to also play around with the X rotation, and I'll take that back. So watch what I just did. This is gonna be really crazy. Okay? So that is the 3D camera. I hope you understand. And hopefully tomorrow, if you have some questions, just let me know, okay? So anyway, thanks a lot. And I'll render this out and I'll put it up online as well. So that's it. And let me get this tutorial shut down. Okay, thanks again. Talk to you